Good afternoon. Happy Easter once again. Today's scriptures speak to us about a common theme that we hear. One is peace and one is believing. I'd like to just speak to you quickly about some things in the past. Take you back to history. Some of you may have been alive for some of this, some of you may not have been. So you might remember the early Greek and Roman gods. They lived in Mount Olympus. Everything was peaceful. Everything was perfect. And then things destroyed it later on. You might remember that people said there's no way anyone's going to walk on the moon. And yet it happened. People later on said, ain't never going to happen. We're never going to have women voting. But that happened too. And you all, I'm sure, remember Martin Luther King saying, I have a dream. And again, he had the dream. People followed him who had the dream, but it did not come into reality. Who remembers Star Trek? Star Trek was based on a premise that all the nations and all the universes and worlds, everybody lived in peace. And they could work together. All different things. They even looked crazy and they don't look like humans, but they could live together. And then Shangri-La, the great place of peace. You also read, maybe, I had to read in college, St. Thomas More's Utopia, a place of peace and harmony built upon God's love and faith. And then there's a song, a couple of songs. One of them was from the Smothers Brothers show of all places. They had different guests come on, and one of the guests sung this beautiful song called One Tin Soldier. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but after talking about the different aspects, there was two cities or two towns, and one town was filled with peace, vitality, harmony. The people were healthy, everything was good. The other town it wasn't, and they wanted to steal the treasure that this other city had because they wanted that. So they went and they killed everybody. And then where the treasure was, they opened it up, turned over, and there was a rock, and on the rock it said, peace. Simple word, peace. And this was the way the song ended. It goes, now they stood beside the treasure on the mountain dark and red, turned the stone and looked beneath it. Peace on earth was all it said. Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat a friend. Do it in the name of heaven. You can justify it in the end. There won't be any trumpets blowing come the judgment day. On the bloody morning after, one tin soldier rides away. And again, that's what we see in reality so often. The other song was, again, a lot of these songs and poems and movies, they came in the 60s, 70s, when I grew up. And part of it was a movement against establishment and against war. But they believed that there could be peace. People lived in communes. People lived in places where they just lived together and shared everything. John Lennon, his song Imagine, we don't appreciate it because it talks about no religion and no God. He actually said once that he was more famous than God. But the song Imagine There's No Heaven is easy if you try. The line continues, but imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. No religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. I hope someday you will join us and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. So what does this have to do with faith and scripture? Well, I believe that one reason we are so far away from fully establishing or living in the kingdom that Christ brought to us is that we refuse to believe what we have not seen. Just as in today's gospel. We can't believe that Jesus rose from the dead unless we touch his hands. Or we can't believe what Christ offers us, what God offers us, unless we truly see it. You and I have never lived in a time where we haven't experienced in some way war. Our country was involved in a few, and all around the place. Right now it's Ukraine, Syria, Lebanon, all over the place. War. We don't think it's possible to live in a world without war. We also have always lived with the poor. And we make excuses. Well, Christ says the poor you always have with you. Well, yes, but that doesn't mean it has to be. We can believe, and many people believe, and many organizations that have been created believe that they can eliminate poverty, injustice, if everyone works together to do that. In the upcoming weeks, we're going to be reading from the Acts of the Apostles. And in that Acts of the Apostles story, the early Christian community lived together as one. They lived in peace. They lived in one. They shared everything they had. No one was in need. And then that too fell apart. Is it possible? Is it possible to live in harmony and peace with everybody? Yes, it truly is. That's what Christ said to us. That's what Christ brought to us. And yet, because we've never seen it in a large scale, we've seen it in little tiny instances, and we thought those people might be crazy, or we might thought they were hippies or communist. We don't believe that people can live together fully in peace and harmony, and yet we can. Blessed are they who have not seen and have believed. We hear that in today's gospel. Well, we haven't seen a lot of things, but we can believe because Christ offered it to us. A new world of justice, a new world of peace. They no longer looked for Jesus among the dead, but they did find him again in life and in the fullness of life as he came to them and offered them peace. 3 times in today's gospel, he says, peace be with you. And so perhaps we can base our lives on total faith. We can be, as the apostles discovered, a new creation. We only have to believe. I remember I really didn't care for the movie, but the song, I Believe by Josh Groban also talks about that. There's so many things that can happen if we believe. One-on-one, we see it. Some people believe that they will find someone to marry and fall in love with and live their life with. And it happens. Some people believe that they can pursue a goal, perhaps educationally, physically, sports, musically, and it happens. They work for it. But that's because they think they're doing it. And we have to recognize that it's God who is calling us to live in peace and harmony and justice. So as people who are celebrating the Easter season, who are celebrating the peace, the healing, the forgiveness of Christ, simply believe that it is possible to live in peace and harmony with God and God's people. Have a great Easter season. Be well.